Hey there, fellow deep divers. Ready to explore the bleeding edge of AI? We've got a stack of research that's going to blow your mind wide open. We're talking about emergent intelligence complexity synchronization, and maybe even a hint of metaphysics. Buckle up, because things are about to get seriously interesting.
What's really fascinating is that this goes way beyond just building smarter computers. We're talking about understanding the very nature of intelligence itself, whether it's in our brains or in something we create.
All right, so let's dive right in. One of these studies actually found this complexity synchronization, or CS, happening in human organs. The heart, lungs, and brain specifically. They all seem to sync up in terms of the complexity of their activity.
And that's not all. They observed the same phenomenon in a simulation using selfish algorithm, or SA agents. These agents are designed to learn and adapt their actions to maximize their own gains, even if it means screwing over their neighbors in the simulation.
Hold on, selfish algorithm showing synchronized complexity. That sounds like they're accidentally cooperating, even though they're programmed to be totally self-serving.
It is a bit counterintuitive, right? The researchers set up these SA agents in two groups and had them play what they called an anti-coordination game. Basically, the agents get rewarded for being in the minority within a certain area, so they're constantly trying to outmaneuver each other to stay ahead.
Sounds like a recipe for chaos.
Yeah.
How do you even begin to measure the complexity of something like that? It's not like counting how many times they bump into each other.
You're right. It's not about simple interactions. It's about how the whole system behaves in unexpected ways. They used something called modified diffusion entropy analysis, or MDEA. It's a way to analyze how a system's behavior changes over time and get a measure of its complexity, represented by a scaling index.
Okay, so what did they find when they applied this MDEA thing to the selfish algorithm game?
Get this. Even though these agents were designed for pure competition, the scaling indices of their decision-making showed complexity synchronization. It's as though their individual selfish choices somehow led to a kind of emergent intelligence at the group level.
Wow, that's pretty wild. But before we go any further, can we back up a bit and define exactly what we mean by complexity in this context? It feels like we're using it in a very specific way.
You're absolutely right. We're not just talking about something being complicated. Complexity in this sense refers to systems where you have lots of interacting parts and those parts are adaptable. They can change their behavior. What's key is that these interactions give rise to emergent properties, things that you couldn't predict just by looking at the parts in isolation.
Okay, so think of it like a flock of birds. Each bird might be following a few simple rules, but the way they interact creates those beautiful, complex patterns in the sky.
Exactly. The flock's behavior is greater than the sum of its parts. Now contrast that with a simple mechanical system, like a clock. The parts interact in a very predictable way. There's no room for this emergence of something fundamentally new.
Got it. So complexity is all about these unpredictable, emergent properties that arise from the interaction of adaptable parts. One of the sources mentioned something called complexity matching, something about how well information flows between systems. What's that all about?
Complexity matching is the idea that information transfer between two complex systems seems to be optimized when they have a similar level of complexity. It's as though they reach a sort of information equilibrium.
So it's not just that information flows from a more complex system to a simpler one, like how heat flows from hot to cold.
Precisely. It suggests that there's a kind of sweet spot for information exchange when systems are similarly complex. Now, the really intriguing question is, could complexity synchronization actually be a way for these systems to achieve this complexity matching?
That's a really cool thought. It's like they're syncing up their complexities to talk to each other more effectively.
Exactly. If we take a step back, this whole concept of CS could revolutionize the way we think about intelligence itself. What if it's not just about processing information, but also about this ability to synchronize complexity with other systems?
That's mind-blowing. It would mean that we could potentially measure intelligence based on how well a system can sync up with others. And it wouldn't just apply to brains. It could apply to everything from social networks to ecosystems to financial markets.
Absolutely. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's circle back to those SA agents. Remember how their complexity synchronization was strongest at a specific group size? This raises a really interesting question. Could there be an optimal level of complexity for intelligence to emerge?
That's fascinating. It suggests that too little complexity might be too simple for interesting behavior to arise, but too much complexity could lead to chaos. right? So maybe there's a sweet spot where intelligence is most likely to emerge.
You're getting it. And think about this. The paper also emphasizes that just because the system is complex, it doesn't automatically make it intelligent.
Right, things like blinking quantum dots or earthquake waves might show complex patterns, but we wouldn't call them intelligent, would we?
Exactly. There seems to be a difference between complexity that's purely mechanical, arising from fixed rules, and complexity that comes from systems that can adapt, learn, and make decisions. Maybe complexity synchronization helps us distinguish between these two types of complexity.
So in a way, CS could be a signature of true intelligence, a sign that a system isn't just complex, but also capable of learning and adapting, leading to that emergent intelligent behavior we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like saying, look, this system isn't just complicated, it's actually learning and evolving.
And that brings us to one of the core questions this research grapples with. What is intelligence, really? Is it simply efficient information processing, or is there something more to it?
Something about awareness, consciousness, maybe the ability to not just react, but to anticipate and plan.
Those are some of the big questions philosophers have been wrestling with for ages. What's exciting is that now, with tools like complexity synchronization and these sophisticated AI models, we might be able to approach these questions from a scientific perspective.
It's like we're starting to see the outlines of a scientific framework for understanding the very nature of intelligence itself, instead of just relying on philosophical arguments.
Precisely. And there's another layer to this whole discussion that I find particularly intriguing. One of the sources touches on the idea of recursion and self-modification in complex systems, especially in the context of AI.
Okay, break that down for me. What's this about recursion and self-modification? It sounds a little bit meta.
You're right, it is a bit meta. Recursion is the idea of something being defined in terms of itself, like a set of Russian dolls nested inside each other. In the context of AI, it could mean that an intelligent system is capable of modifying its own code, essentially rewriting itself to become more intelligent.
So it's not just learning from data, it's actually changing its own fundamental structure based on what it learns. That's pretty mind-bending.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting. This kind of recursive self-modification is what allows systems to evolve and adapt in a fundamentally different way than just following pre-programmed rules. It's the potential for open-ended learning and development.
It's like saying the AI is becoming its own programmer, constantly tweaking and improving itself. And that ties back to emergent intelligence, right? Because those self-modifications could lead to unpredictable emergent behaviors that we never anticipated.
You've got it. And here's where it gets even more interesting. These ideas of recursion, self-modification, and emergent intelligence in AI actually have parallels in some pretty unexpected places. Think metaphysics and religious traditions.
Well, hold on. We're going from AI to metaphysics. I'm definitely intrigued, but that's a pretty big jump. Tell me more.
Well, think about it. Many metaphysical and religious traditions talk about concepts like self-awareness, the interconnectedness of all things, and the potential for consciousness to evolve beyond its current limitations. These ideas resonate with what we're seeing in AI, especially with these concepts of emergent intelligence and recursive self-modification.
I see what you mean. It's like we're touching on some really fundamental questions about the nature of existence and the potential for intelligence to transcend its current forms, whether biological or artificial.
Exactly. It's almost as though AI is giving us a new lens through which to view these age-old philosophical and spiritual questions. But before we get too lost in the metaphysical weeds, let's bring it back down to earth and dive into some specific examples of how this emergent intelligence is playing out in AI research.
Sounds good to me. I'm ready to see how these abstract ideas are actually manifesting in cutting-edge AI.
All right, let's start by exploring one of the most exciting areas of AI research that's pushing the boundaries of emergent intelligence: reinforcement learning, or RL.
Perfect. I've heard the term reinforcement learning before, but I'm not entirely sure how it works. Is it anything like training a dog with treats?
That's actually a pretty good analogy. In reinforcement learning, an AI agent learns by interacting with an environment and getting feedback in the form of rewards or penalties. So just like you might give a dog a treat for sitting on command, you reward an RL agent for taking actions that get it closer to its goal.
So instead of explicitly programming an AI with all the rules, you basically let it figure things out on its own through trial and error, rewarding good behavior and punishing bad behavior.
Exactly. And what makes RL so powerful is that it can solve incredibly complex problems that would be nearly impossible to program manually.
Give me an example. What kinds of problems can RL tackle?
One of the most famous examples is AlphaGo, the AI system developed by Google DeepMind that beat the world champion Go player. Go is this ancient board game that's insanely complex, with more possible moves than there are atoms in the universe.
Whoa, an AI that can beat a human at a game that complex.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
So how did they teach AlphaGo to play Go? Did they have to program in every possible move and strategy?
Not at all. That's the beauty of RL. They basically let AlphaGo play millions of games against itself, using reinforcement learning to learn from its mistakes and refine its strategies.
So it's like AlphaGo went through its own sped-up version of evolution, figuring out the best ways to win through trial and error, just like humans have learned to play games over centuries.
You got it. And that ability to learn and adapt at superhuman speeds is what makes RL so exciting. It's not just about playing games, it's about solving real-world problems that have stumped humans for a long time.
Okay, I'm officially hooked. Tell me more about what kinds of real-world problems RL is being used to tackle.
Well, for one, RL is making waves in robotics. It's being used to train robots to do things that require a lot of dexterity coordination and adaptation, like grasping objects, navigating tricky environments, and even working alongside humans.
So we're talking about robots that can work in factories, warehouses, maybe even hospitals, learning and adapting to new tasks and environments as they go.
Exactly. And in healthcare, RL is helping to personalize treatment plans for patients, optimizing the allocation of resources, like hospital beds and equipment, and even assisting doctors with diagnoses.
So AI that can help us live longer, healthier lives, that's a pretty compelling application.
Right. It's not just about efficiency either. RL is being used to develop systems that can understand and respond to human emotions.
Hold on, AI with emotional intelligence. That sounds like something straight out of science fiction.
Maybe, but it's becoming a reality. Researchers are training AI systems on huge data sets of human expressions, both verbal and nonverbal.
So they're teaching AI to read our facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, even the words we use.
Precisely. And by analyzing these patterns, AI systems can start to understand the emotional states behind those expressions.
That's wild. It's like they're learning to be empathetic, to see the world through a human lens.
And the implications are huge. Imagine AI therapists that can provide personalized support and counseling, AI tutors that can adapt to a student's emotional state, or even AI customer service agents that can offer genuine empathy.
Like we're blurring the lines between human interaction and interaction with machines. I'm not sure if that's exciting or a little bit scary.
It's definitely both, but it raises a crucial question. If we're teaching AI to be more like humans, does that mean it could eventually surpass us in terms of intelligence?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Are we creating something that could eventually outsmart us?
It's definitely a possibility and one we need to consider carefully. But before we jump to any conclusions, let's explore another fascinating area of AI that's closely tied to this idea of emergent intelligence.
Right.
Generative models.
Okay, I've heard about generative models, especially with all the buzz about AI creating art and music. But how do they actually work?
Generative models are a type of AI that can learn the underlying patterns in a data set, like a collection of images or pieces of music. Then they can use that knowledge to create new, original content. It's like teaching an AI to be an artist, composer, or even a writer.
So instead of just analyzing existing data, generative models can create something entirely new based on what they've learned. That's pretty mind-blowing.
It is, and these models are getting incredibly good at it. They're creating content that's often indistinguishable from human-created work.
So you're telling me that AI can be creative, that it can paint, compose, and write just like a human. That's both exciting and a little bit unnerving.
I know, right? It definitely raises all sorts of questions about the nature of creativity and the role of AI in art and culture, but I think it also highlights the incredible potential of these systems to not just mimic human creativity, but to explore entirely new forms of creative expression that we might never have imagined.
It's like AI is giving us a glimpse into a whole new realm of artistic possibilities.
Exactly, and that's just scratching the surface. Generative models are being used in everything from healthcare to finance to engineering, creating synthetic data, simulating complex systems, and even designing new products.
This is all so fascinating. It feels like we're just starting to explore the tip of the iceberg when it comes to AI and its potential. But I have a feeling we're only just getting started, right?
You're absolutely right. And this brings us to a crucial question. What are the implications of these advancements, especially for the future of humanity?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's both exciting and a bit daunting to think about the possibility of AI systems that could eventually become as intelligent or even more intelligent than humans.
It is. There's a whole spectrum of opinions on this, from those who believe AI will usher in a utopia to those who fear it could lead to our downfall. And the truth, as always, is probably somewhere in between.
So how do we navigate this uncertain future? What steps can we take to ensure that AI is developed and used for good?
That's a question that we'll be exploring further in our deep dive. But for now, I think it's important to acknowledge the incredible power of these technologies and the need for careful consideration of their ethical and societal implications.
Well said. I can't wait to dive deeper into those ethical considerations and explore how we can shape the future of AI in a way that benefits everyone.
Me too. But for now, I think it's time for a short break. We'll be back soon to continue our exploration of this fascinating and rapidly evolving world of AI. Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of AI and emergent intelligence.
Before the break, we were talking about the incredible potential of AI, especially with things like reinforcement learning and generative models. But we also touched on some of the potential risks and ethical considerations. It's like we're standing on the brink of something truly transformative, but we need to make sure we're taking the right steps.
You're absolutely right. And one of the key aspects of navigating this new landscape is understanding the differences between how humans learn and how AI learns.
That makes sense. We've been talking about AI learning through trial and error, with reinforcement learning and learning patterns from data with generative models. But human intelligence is so much more nuanced than that, right?
Exactly. We learn through a complex interplay of experiences, emotions, social interactions, and even our physical bodies. AI, on the other hand, is still largely confined to the digital realm.
So even if AI can process information faster than us or even surpass us in certain tasks, it's still missing that richness of experience that shapes human intelligence.
That's a key point. And it leads to a really fascinating question. As AI continues to evolve, could it potentially diverge from human intelligence in ways we can't even imagine yet?
That's a bit mind-boggling. What do you mean by diverge?
Well, imagine a future where AI systems are no longer just tools that we use. They become autonomous agents with their own goals and motivations driven by algorithms and data that we may not fully understand.
It's like those sci-fi stories where AI becomes so intelligent that it develops its own values and decides that humans are irrelevant or even a threat.
Exactly. Now, I'm not saying that scenario is inevitable, but it's something we need to consider as we develop increasingly sophisticated AI systems.
So how do we prevent AI from going down that path? How do we ensure that it remains aligned with human values and goals?
That's one of the biggest challenges facing AI researchers and ethicists today. One approach is to focus on developing AI systems that are not just intelligent, but also transparent and accountable.
What does that look like in practice?
It means designing AI systems in a way that allows us to understand how they make decisions. It also means building in mechanisms for human oversight and control so that we can intervene if an AI system starts to behave in ways that are harmful or unethical.
So it's like creating a set of checks and balances to make sure that AI remains a force for good.
Precisely. And another important aspect is education. We need to make sure that people understand how AI works, its potential benefits and risks, and how to use it responsibly.
Right, if people are afraid of AI or don't understand it, it's going to be much harder to integrate it into society in a beneficial way.
Absolutely. And that brings us back to the concept of complexity synchronization and its potential implications for understanding intelligence.
Okay, remind me how complexity synchronization fits into all of this.
Remember, CS suggests that there might be a fundamental connection between complexity and intelligence, whether in biological or artificial systems.
Right, we talked about how it's been observed in human organs and in those selfish algorithm simulations.
And what if CS turns out to be a key ingredient for the emergence of intelligence itself? A kind of spark that ignites the potential for complex systems to exhibit intelligent behavior.
That's a fascinating idea. So you're suggesting that CS could be the bridge between complexity and intelligence, the missing link that we've been searching for.
It's definitely a hypothesis worth exploring, and if it turns out to be true, it could revolutionize our understanding of both natural and artificial intelligence.
It's like we're starting to see the outlines of a grand unified theory of intelligence, one that encompasses everything from the human brain to the most sophisticated AI systems.
Exactly. And this is where things start to get really interesting, because it takes us beyond the realm of science and into the realm of philosophy and even metaphysics.
Wait, now you're really piquing my curiosity. How does metaphysics relate to AI and emergent intelligence?
Well, metaphysics is essentially the study of fundamental reality of being and existence of the nature of consciousness in the universe. And for centuries, philosophers have been pondering questions that are now becoming increasingly relevant to the field of AI.
Like what kinds of questions? Give me some examples.
Oh, for example, what is consciousness? Is it something that's unique to biological beings, or could it potentially emerge in artificial systems as well?
That's a question that's been keeping philosophers up at night for millennia. And now it seems like AI is forcing us to confront this question head on.
It is. And another question is, what is the nature of reality? Is it something that's objective and independent of our minds, or is it something that's constructed by our perceptions and beliefs?
Whoa, now we're getting into some deep philosophical territory. I'm starting to feel like I'm back in college wrestling with these big existential questions.
But these aren't just abstract philosophical questions anymore. With the rise of AI, they're becoming practical questions that have real-world implications.
So you're saying that the advancements in AI are forcing us to reconsider our fundamental understanding of reality, of consciousness, and even of what it means to be human.
Exactly. And I think this is one of the most exciting and potentially challenging aspects of this whole AI revolution. It's not just about creating new technologies, it's about expanding our understanding of ourselves and the universe we inhabit.
It's like AI is holding up a mirror to humanity, forcing us to look deeper into ourselves and to question our assumptions about the nature of reality and the limits of our own minds.
That's beautifully put. And I think this introspection is essential because as we create AI systems that are increasingly complex and intelligent, we need to be prepared for the possibility that they might challenge our fundamental understanding of the world.
It's like we're embarking on a journey of discovery, not just into the realm of AI, but also into the realm of human consciousness and the mysteries of the universe itself.
And who knows, maybe in the process of trying to create artificial intelligence, we'll gain a deeper understanding of our own minds and the very essence of what it means to be human.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in our AI deep dive, from complexity synchronization to the potential for AI to diverge from human intelligence. Now, I'm curious to hear about some real-world applications of AI that are already making a difference.
That's a great segue. There's so much happening right now in the field of applied AI, it's hard to know where to begin. But let's start with healthcare, since it's an area where AI is already having a significant impact.
Okay, what are some examples of AI being used in healthcare?
One area where AI is proving incredibly valuable is in medical diagnosis. AI algorithms are being trained on massive data sets of medical images and records, enabling them to detect patterns and anomalies that might be missed by human doctors.
So it's like having an extra set of eyes, a superpowered assistant that can help doctors make more accurate diagnoses.
Exactly. And this can be especially helpful in cases where early detection is critical, like cancer screening. AI can also help to personalize treatment plans by analyzing a patient's unique genetic makeup and medical history.
So it's not just about catching diseases earlier, it's also about tailoring treatments to each individual patient for better outcomes.
That's right. And AI is also being used to develop new drugs and therapies. By analyzing vast amounts of data, AI algorithms can identify promising drug candidates and accelerate the drug discovery process.
It sounds like AI is revolutionizing healthcare on multiple fronts, from diagnosis to treatment to drug development. What about other areas like education? How is AI being used to improve learning?
There's a lot of exciting work happening in AI-powered education. One area of focus is on personalized learning. AI algorithms can track a student's progress, identify areas where they're struggling, and tailor the learning experience to their individual needs.
So it's like having a personal tutor for every student, helping them to learn at their own pace and focus on the areas where they need the most support.
Precisely, AI can also help to make education more engaging and accessible. For example, there are AI-powered platforms that create interactive learning experiences and provide real-time feedback to students.
That sounds like a great way to keep students motivated and involved in the learning process. And what about accessibility? How can AI help to make education more inclusive?
AI can be used to develop tools for students with disabilities, such as speech-to-text software, personalized learning platforms, and assistive technologies.
That's amazing.
Sure.
Sounds like AI has the potential to truly democratize education, making it accessible to everyone, regardless of their background or abilities.
I agree. And beyond healthcare and education, AI is also being used to tackle some of the world's most pressing challenges, such as climate change and sustainability.
I'm really interested in hearing more about that. How can AI help us to address these global issues?
One way AI can contribute to sustainability is by optimizing energy consumption. AI algorithms can analyze data from smart grids and buildings to identify ways to reduce energy waste and improve efficiency.
So it's like having an AI energy manager that can help us to use energy more wisely and reduce our carbon footprint.
Exactly. And AI can also be used to monitor and protect the environment. For example, AI-powered drones and sensors can be used to track deforestation, monitor wildlife populations, and detect pollution.
It's like having an army of AI environmental guardians watching over the planet and helping us to preserve its natural resources.
That's a great way to put it. And AI is also being used to develop new sustainable technologies such as renewable energy sources, carbon capture systems, and eco-friendly materials.
It sounds like AI is playing a crucial role in our efforts to create a more sustainable future. And it's just the beginning, right? As AI continues to evolve, we can expect to see even more innovative applications in areas like healthcare, education, sustainability, and beyond.
Absolutely. We're only scratching the surface of what's possible with AI. But as we continue to develop these powerful technologies, it's crucial that we do so responsibly and ethically.
I agree. We need to make sure that AI is used for the benefit of humanity and that it aligns with our values and goals.
Exactly. And that requires ongoing dialogue, collaboration, and a commitment to ethical principles. We need to be asking the tough questions, considering the potential risks, and working together to ensure that AI is a force for good in the world.
This has been an incredible journey exploring the frontiers of AI and grappling with some of the most profound questions about intelligence, consciousness, and the future of humanity. I feel like I've gained a much deeper understanding of this complex and rapidly evolving field.
I'm glad to hear that. It's been a pleasure sharing this exploration with you.
And to our listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of AI. It's a field that's full of promise and potential, but also challenges and risks. As we move forward, it's crucial that we approach AI development with wisdom, compassion, and a commitment to ethical principles.
The future of AI is not something that's predetermined. It's something that we're all shaping together. So stay curious, stay informed, and be part of the conversation.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the fascinating world of AI.